They say the ancient world was full of wonders that could rival our modern age, if only we remembered how they worked. Some were born of necessity, others of genius, and a few seemed to flirt with the edges of magic. Now picture this. The year is long before compasses guided ships, before steel rails crisscrossed continents, before GPS satellites blinked above us like watchful eyes. You are standing on a dusty road in China, perhaps in the 3rd century. The air is warm with the scent of earth after a passing rain. You hear the soft creak of wooden wheels turning, the clop of hooves on packed dirt. Coming toward you is a strange wooden chariot, pulled not by oxen or horses, but guided by men at the reins. Yet it is not the wheels or the carved wooden frame that catch your attention. It is the small figure mounted at its top, a carved man, elegant and unmoving, arm outstretched, pointing unwaveringly to the south. No matter how the chariot turns, no matter what direction the road twists or the wind shifts, the little figure's hand remains fixed, as if locked by some unseen cosmic truth. You don't yet know it, but you're looking at one of the most ingenious navigation devices in human history, the South Pointing Chariot. To understand its importance, we have to go back in time, deep into the history of China, to an age when control over the land meant the difference between an empire's survival and its collapse. China's great dynasties rose and fell not only on the strength of their armies, but on their ability to move them, to cross mountains, rivers, deserts, and vast plains without losing their way. Today we have compasses, maps, satellites. Back then, the world's navigational knowledge was limited, fragile, and easily lost in the chaos of war. The earliest legends of the South Pointing Chariot take us to the 3rd century AD, during the turbulent Three Kingdoms period, when China was divided into rival states, Wei, Shu, and Wu. Warlords maneuvered like pieces on a massive chessboard, alliances shifting like sand in the wind. Among the many who sought to claim the mandate of heaven was the brilliant strategist and engineer Ma Jun, a man remembered for his genius with machines. Ma Jun's creations were as practical as they were dazzling. Automated puppets, water-powered mechanisms, siege devices. But his most enduring, most enigmatic invention was the South Pointing Chariot. Historical records say he built it for military navigation, allowing armies to keep their bearings even when crossing open terrain under a cloudy sky. No sun, no stars to guide them. Here's the mystery. This chariot did not use a magnetic compass. Magnets were known in China at the time, but the South Pointing Chariot worked entirely through mechanics, a feat of pure engineering. Imagine the interior. Hidden beneath the carved wooden panels and lacquered wheels was a complex arrangement of gears, possibly a differential. A system that could translate the turning of the wheels into rotational control for the pointing figure. The genius was in keeping the figure oriented south no matter how the chariot itself turned. It worked like this. As the chariot moved forward, the wheels turned gears connected to the figure above. If the chariot veered left, the gears would rotate the figure right, maintaining its fixed orientation. If the chariot turned right, the figure would turn left. The result? The figure always pointed south, as though guided by some unseen hand of fate. It sounds simple, but think about the precision required. Without digital calibration, without electricity, this device relied solely on perfect gear ratios, flawless craftsmanship, and balance so exact that even uneven roads wouldn't throw it off. One slip, one misaligned tooth in a gear, and the figure's direction would drift. And yet Chinese chronicles insist the chariot worked, and worked well enough to be used in official processions, military campaigns, and ceremonial displays for centuries. The accounts from the Tang dynasty describe emperors using it as a symbol of their ability to lead with divine precision. In the Song dynasty, there are records of engineers reconstructing the chariot for parades, to remind their people of the brilliance of their ancestors. Even Marco Polo, traveling in the 13th century, heard of Chinese carts that could point south without fail. But how exactly did they build it? That's where history begins to blur into mystery. The mechanical principle, the differential gear, wouldn't be described in Western records until the Renaissance, more than 1,000 years later. Yet here it was, in ancient China, centuries ahead of its supposed invention in Europe. Some modern historians believe this is evidence that certain engineering concepts were far older and more globally connected than we once thought. Others think the Chinese simply developed it independently, driven by the needs of their vast empire. There's another layer to the story, the symbolism of always pointing south. In ancient Chinese cosmology, south was associated with warmth, life, and the emperor's authority. The emperor traditionally sat facing south in his throne room, symbolizing his alignment with the cosmic order. To point south was to point toward harmony and rightful rule. The chariot wasn't just a navigational tool, it was a political statement. Wherever the emperor or his armies went, they carried the direction of heaven with them. And yet, despite its fame, no original south-pointing chariot survives today. What we know comes from written descriptions, paintings, and later reconstructions. These reconstructions, from the Qing dynasty to modern museum replicas, have shown that the principle does work, but they also raise questions. Could such a device remain accurate over long distances without constant recalibration? Could it function in the heat of battle, jostling over rough ground? Or was it more a ceremonial marvel, rolled out on special occasions to inspire awe? The theories are fascinating. Some say it was indeed purely practical, a brilliant tool for military logistics in the days before the magnetic compass became reliable. Others argue it was a symbolic machine, a blend of mechanical skill and political theater, meant to impress foreign envoys and rally troops. And there's a third, more romantic possibility, that it was both. That the south-pointing chariot was an example of the ancient Chinese genius for merging utility with art, function with philosophy. Think about it. Even if it was ceremonial, it still required mastery of mechanical principles that would challenge a modern engineer without computer modeling. The fact that they could hide such complexity beneath carved wood and lacquered surfaces says something about their priorities. Beauty and mystery were part of the power. And perhaps that's why it still fascinates us today. It's not just a story about a vehicle that could point south. It's about the idea that in the distant past, human ingenuity solved problems in ways we might not expect, ways that remind us we are not the first clever ones to walk the earth. I sometimes wonder about the craftsmen who built the original chariot. Did they know their work would echo through millennia? Did they whisper secrets to their apprentices, pass down tricks for shaving a gear's tooth just so, for balancing the weight of the pointing figure until it felt almost alive? Or were they simply solving a problem for their emperor, unaware that centuries later, we would still be marveling at their work? And then there's the thought that this technology, like so many others in history, could have been lost not because it failed, but because it succeeded only in the context of its time. Once magnetic compasses became widespread, the need for a mechanical south pointer faded. And with that fading came forgetfulness. The gears stopped turning. The knowledge slept. Today, the south-pointing chariot lives mostly in the imagination, in museum displays, in reconstructed models, in the pages of history books. But it's more than a quaint curiosity. It's a reminder that sometimes the solutions to our problems aren't about having the latest technology, but about understanding the tools we have and pushing them to their absolute limit. And maybe that's the real magic here. Not magnets, not some lost sorcery. Just the human mind, at its most inventive, turning wood and bronze into a machine that could hold its course no matter how the world twisted around it. So the next time you pull out your phone to check your location on a map, think of that little carved figure, hand forever outstretched, pointing into the unknown, steady, certain, unshaken by the turns of the road. Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of history's most elegant enigmas. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Was the South Pointing Chariot a practical tool of war, a political symbol, or a piece of ceremonial theater that hid its true genius in plain sight? Share your ideas in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, please like, comment, and share. It truly helps keep these stories alive.